Hi, Dan. Nice to meet you. Thanks for moderating.
Well, hello, Andrea. Nice to meet you as well. Thanks for joining us. I'm just fiddling around with my email as I'm sending out the link for our YouTube Live.
Good. And Richard, are you actually here? You're hidden.
I'm here, but I'm hiding.
Well, nice to virtually see you. Hello, Shelley.
Are you guys getting that feedback? I didn't.
Hi, Andrea. It's nice to virtually meet you as well.
Yeah, not as good as it might be. My connection is unstable. And everybody looks frozen.
Yeah, you're pretty frozen over there.
Yeah. Oh, you look frozen too. Are you feeling frozen?
Not on my end, just you.
Yeah, I think it's just your connection, Andrea. Hopefully that doesn't affect things too much. And I think we're waiting for Kyle as well. He joins us soon. Just so you guys know, we're live on YouTube, even though I haven't started yet. But I'm going to press the start webinar button here just so we can let people filter in. Andrea, maybe you want to try pop out and come back in just to see if that fixes things. Okay, so I have started it. Hello, everybody starting to filter in. Welcome to the Chambers All Candidates Forum. We will just allow some time for attendees to filter in as well. We're waiting on 2 candidates to join us. So hopefully we can get started promptly at 6 p.m. here. Just so you candidates know, you don't have to worry about looking at the questions. We will moderate those and filter them and ask you verbally as those come in.
Hey,
hi,
Dan.
Kyle.
How you doing, Dan?
Good. We are live and getting ready to start fairly shortly here.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thanks for joining.
You betcha. Thanks for having us.
Great to see everybody start to filter into the All Candidates Forum here. Just waiting on one more candidate. She joined earlier, but she was having some technical difficulties. So I just want to give her an opportunity to try and rejoin us. think we'll give one more minute for our other candidate to figure out her technology, as well as allow a few more people to come in. Numbers are climbing, so great to see everybody in attendance. Thank you for joining us. Okay, Andrea's popped out again. She's having some technical difficulty, but I think we'll get started without her just so we don't delay things any further. I want to welcome everybody to the Greater Vernon Chambers Federal All Candidates Forum. It is sponsored by the BC Fruit Growers Association, so thank you to those people. I'm Dan Prue, the General Manager at the Greater Vernon Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered here today on the unceded territory of the Syilx Okanagan peoples. The Greater Vernon Chamber is a nonprofit membership-based business support organization, and we are proud to offer this opportunity to the community to hear from your candidates and make an informed decision for your vote moving forward on September 20th. I would also like to thank our candidates today for their commitment to join us and for their interest in serving the North Okanagan Shuswap riding. Now we'll introduce our candidates in alphabetical order. We have Mel Arnold from the Conservative Party, Kyle Delfing from the People's Party, Shelley Desautels from the Liberal Party, Andrea, I believe, is trying to join us, so Andrea Gunner from the Green Party, maybe we'll see her in a little bit, as well as Ron Johnson from the New Democratic Party. So thank you to yourselves for joining us, and I will believe we will move right into our opening statements. I will give each of you 3 minutes to discuss your party's platform, or however you decide to choose to use those 3 minutes. When there are 20 seconds remaining, I will let you know visually that there are 20 seconds. That's a pretty good sign, right? A way of trying to get your attention. When those additional 20 seconds are up, I will let you know audibly. And if you continue talking, I will just mute you. But I don't think we'll have to get to that. So we will start this in alphabetical order again. So the floor is yours, Mel.
Good evening, Dan, and thank you to good evening to everyone else, and thank you to the Greater Vernon District Chamber of Commerce for hosting this important forum tonight on the traditional territory of the Syilx people. I'm here tonight as a Conservative candidate to share our positive vision for the future and look forward to answering the questions that you have submitted. Over the past 6 years, I've listened and heard from people across this region expressing their concern on many different issues. Issues as varied as the great people and beautiful landscape of the North Okanagan Shuswap. Issues such as affordability, housing, accessibility, and many, many more. You've said that we must rein in government spending and inflation to address affordability challenges, like the price of groceries going up 5%. And gas having risen over 30% in the last year alone. Housing prices have also exploded, making it nearly impossible for young families to own their own homes. Conservatives have a plan to address these runaway costs by lowering grocery and banking costs and lowering cell phone rates by introducing more competition and by doing much, much more to keep life affordable. We will also work with communities to build 1 million more new homes to tackle the lack of inventory that is making home ownership so expensive. Over the past 18 months, our health has become a major focus across the globe, whether it's the virus and pandemic itself or mental health challenges as a result. We've all become far more aware of how much more attention our health deserves. That is why we are determined to make mental health a priority, by increasing health transfers to the provinces and by adding another $325 million to create 1,000 additional beds for addiction recovery. We will also work with First Nations to provide culturally appropriate addictions and treatment prevention services in First Nations communities as just a part of our work towards true reconciliation in Canada. Our health is directly impacted by the environment around us as well, and Canadians are seeing how directly we're connected to that environment, particularly in a year when heat domes and raging wildfires have dominated our summer. Seeing and understanding this, our Conservative Party is committed to our plan titled Secure the Environment, that we will fight climate change, but we won't do it on the backs of hardworking Canadians. I would encourage everyone watching to have a look at our Conservative platform at conservative.ca/plan. I'm proud of the plan, and I think you will find that there is something positive for every Canadian in every walk of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. It's 3 minutes on the nose. Next in alphabetical order, we have Kyle Delfing. Kyle?
I'd like to thank the BC Fruit Growers Association and Chamber of Commerce for bringing us all here today. It's nice to see over 100 people in the room. It's really great. My name is Kyle Delfing. I'm with the People's Party of Canada, running for the Member of Parliament in North Okanagan, Shuswap. I'm a local businessman and an expecting father. I'd like to acknowledge the fact that the People's Party of Canada is the only political party looking to abolish the Indian Act and bring our Aboriginal brothers and sisters in line with the rights of Canadians. And that's one of the policies that make us unique, along with actually willing to address local issues that are involved with environment like pollution and the effects of climate change on our cities and towns. We're looking to get Canada out of deficit spending. We've seen the deficit balloon by $300 billion in the last 3 years. It's out of control. As fast as it got up, we can bring it down, and we should, because that affects affordability of all Canadians. The way we're borrowing money right now is we're dividing the dollars that we have. Inflation is dollar devaluation, and the People's Party of Canada understands that by lowering the costs of our deficit spending, but not going after the services that the government must provide Canadians, we can make life more affordable for Canadians again. We also want to address healthcare. Healthcare has been ignored for a very long time in this country. We just keep dumping more money on the fire, but it just ends up burning in the thin air. We want to give the responsibility and the ability for provinces to fund their own healthcare again and be in charge. So you, the taxpayer, no longer can get the excuse of, well, my MP just didn't give me enough money this year, because Ottawa's job is not to fund healthcare with the federal healthcare subsidies. What it is our job is to make sure that we take care of this country. We need to put healthcare back in the hands of the provinces so that you can go to your MLA and say, I'm not getting the services that I deserve as a Canadian or as a British Columbian. The other things that set us apart from the other party is the no vaccine passports. Every other party out here is looking to install a vaccine passport system federally. Right now, what they're doing is they're putting an interim passport system into provincial governments. Eventually, that will, underneath a Conservative or underneath a Liberal government, become a national system. The People's Party of Canada understands and respects the rights of all Canadians. It respects your charter rights, and we will make sure to defend those. No matter how many members of Parliament are in Parliament, the People's Party of Canada will make sure to stop this kind of system. It's not fair to any Canadian out here. It's not fair to the small business owners in this community. It's not fair to the tourists, the tourism sector that's going to lose big time on this. It's just not fair. So we know that. The other thing we'd like to address is the vote splitting. Here in the North Okanagan Shuswap, there's 38,000 votes between the Conservatives and the People's Party of Canada. If you divide that by 2, that's 19,000 votes. The best year for the Liberal is still about 3,000 votes away. So we don't have a risk of losing this seat to anybody else. If you vote for the People's Party of Canada, you're going to vote for your freedom back and for normal back. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Over to Shelley.
Good evening. My name is Shelley Desatel, and I am running as the nominee of the Liberal Party here in North Okanagan Shuswap. I'd like to acknowledge that I am speaking to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Secwepemc people and the chosen home for the Salmonar Métis Nation. I want to thank the Chamber and the BC Fruit Growers Association for hosting us this evening, and I especially want to thank you, interested citizens, for joining us tonight. First, I want to tell you a little bit about myself and why I decided to put myself forward as a candidate. I was born and raised in Vernon, and I have lived here in Salmon Arm for 7 years. I have a degree in geography from UBCO. I have an advanced certificate in geographic information systems from BCIT. I am the spouse of a CAF combat veteran, the mother of 2 teenagers, an instructor at Okanagan College, and the owner of a mapping business. I also serve on several boards and am the service officer at the Royal Canadian Legion. My decision to run for elected office was not one that I took lightly. Clearly, I am someone who likes to be involved in our community, but this was an opportunity to help in my community on a scale that I haven't been able to before. As a lifelong resident of both Vernon and Salmon Arm, I have a unique understanding of the diverse needs of the sprawling riding. And I have been witness to the lack of representation and the notice that our communities have received for so long. Rather than continue to be dissatisfied with representation in our community, I decided to put myself forward and try to fix the community. As my friends and colleagues will tell you, I'm a fixer. Unlike this representation the community has received, we deserve someone who represents our needs and challenges to Ottawa rather than represent their party to us. Since I began my journey to first become the nominee and now to run for Member of Parliament, I have had the opportunity to visit every corner of this vast riding. I've also come to meet a diverse group of people who are united by living in this corner of paradise that we have here. I've heard how the pandemic has led to new challenges, but also how the Liberal government has been able to support you through these challenges, whether you lost your job, your business slowed down, or you've even had to close for periods of time. I've heard how the Canada Child Benefit has made a huge difference every month for your families, and how the COVID top-ups for seniors has provided breathing room for so many of you and your older family members. I've heard how relieved you were that you were able to get so many vaccines so soon after they were available. I've also heard how many of you are seeking to come out of COVID with a stronger family, a stronger community, and a stronger country. We have come through this together, and tonight, I hope to share with you both my vision of what we can build together and my commitment to you and our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shelley. Andrea, over to you for your opening statement.
Thanks, Dan. I'm Andrea Gunner. I'm the Green Party representative for the North Okanagan Shuswap. And I would like to acknowledge that I'm living and working on the unceded territory of both the Secwepemc and Syilx people. And thank you very much to the BC Fruit Growers as well as the Vernon Chamber of Commerce for hosting this. I am an agricultural economist. I'm also a farmer, and we also have a food processing company, a meat processing company. I have lived in the North Okanagan for most of my life, growing up here as a child, leaving for 12 years to live at the coast, go to university, and then choosing to move back here rather than going to other places in the world that we also looked at. And the work that I've done over the last 30 years is I have worked with government at all levels. I've worked as a farm business advisor with the agricultural industry, from tree fruits to market gardens to beef ranches and everything in between. And I have an understanding of how business works and what the realities are, how the trade agreements affect us, affect our growers, both here in BC and across Canada. And the thing that really impelled me to run as the Green Party candidate is I have seen, as a farmer myself and working with farmers across Western Canada, the effects of climate change. So the Green Party has the strongest platform on climate change. But besides that, more than that, is their commitment to reducing social inequality. We cannot have active climate solutions without also speaking to and finding solutions for inequality in our society. And honestly, we have, as a society, been doing the same things same old way for the last 30 years, and it's not getting better. And it's not sane to think that we can do things the same way and actually have different outcomes. So the gap is widening between the rich and the poor in the last 18 months. We know that the 47 richest people are $78 billion richer. This has got to stop. The Green Party has a different method of governance, which allows candidates to speak for their constituents.
Thank you, Andrea. That's time. And Ron, over to you for your opening statement.
Thank you, Dan. Hello, everyone. I'm grateful to be speaking to you from the unceded traditional territory of the Syilx Okanagan peoples. My name is Ron Johnston, NDP candidate for North Okanagan Shuswap. Born and raised in Calgary, I have a career in mechanical design, working for high-tech companies that brought me to BC in 2000. It's because of my design background that I've built a very real understanding that complex challenges require creative solutions. And if you want your solutions to succeed, you need to involve everyone who will be affected and engage them in a spirit of collaboration and equality. Volunteerism has always been important to me, from years spent with the Calgary Aerospace Museum after college to eventually being the director and vice president of the Prince George Downtown Association, before shifting that energy into supporting the NDP. For several years, I've worked with both the provincial and federal NDP EDAs in this area, having most recently worked on the successful campaign of our current MLA, Harwinder Sandhu. The pandemic has hit really hard for a lot of families in the North Okanagan Shuswap. Between job loss and rising costs, getting by day to day has become more of a challenge than ever. I understand these challenges firsthand because my family has faced the same struggles. That was a big part of my decision to run. Working class people are vastly underrepresented in politics, but I'm running to give power and a voice back to the everyday people in the North Okanagan Shuswap, and to make sure that super rich and corporations all pay their fair share of the investment into the pandemic recovery for a better future for all of us. Years of Liberal and Conservative inaction has left us with a lot of catching up to do on issues that are very important to people here. We've seen the devastating effect of climate change this past summer, both globally and locally. We need to take immediate action before it's too late. We simply must address issues around affordability and housing. Too many hard workers and families are being left behind as housing costs skyrocket and wages stagnate. Local small businesses are facing the same challenges with rising rents, merchant fees, and telecom costs. Real and meaningful progress on Indigenous justice and reconciliation needs to be moved to the forefront of everything that government is doing, from implementing the 94 calls to action, to including Indigenous leaders at decision-making tables on how we address climate change, conservation, water quality, and so much more. Throughout the pandemic, the NDP were there for you. We pushed the Liberals to double the CERB benefit, and we boosted the wage subsidy program from 10% to 75%. So unlike what you'll be hearing today from the Liberals and Conservatives, these are not new ideas for the NDP. We have always fought to put people first. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. So moving to questions. I would like to obviously encourage everybody who's registered to submit questions via the Q&A if you like, and make sure you address who the question is for, if it is for a specific candidate. Otherwise, we will ask it to everybody. We will begin asking some prepared questions from the chamber. Everybody has 2 minutes to answer questions. And I want to remind you that each of the candidates has the opportunity for 2 rebuttals. So if you would like to rebut, make sure you just get my attention and wave at me. So since Mel started last time, we will let Kyle start the first question, which is, retaining and attracting employees has become increasingly challenging for local employers. What steps need to be taken to address the labor shortage?
On March 17th, when Justin Trudeau asked Canadians to go home and stay home for 14 days to flatten the curve, they obliged, they did so. What we need is a government that's willing to stand up and ask Canadians to go back to work. We need to implement a plan that gets Canadians off CERB in a prudent manner so that they're not left hanging or pulling the rug out from underneath them, but so that we're putting the rug back underneath this economy. The People's Party of Canada understands that a robust economy is the only way forward for Canadians to recover from COVID. No more borrowed money, no more high deficit spending. We're looking at labor costs that are increasing somewhere between 20 and 45%, and sometimes more, depending on who you are and how bad you really need to get labor. In North Okanagan, Shuswap, in Calgary, in Winnipeg, in Toronto, it needs to stop. I've seen cash labor right now across Canada where guys are on CERB and they're still asking for $40 an hour to unload a truck cash in Toronto, and they're doing $30 an hour cash in Calgary. This CERB needs to stop. It needs to stop. CRB is what it's called now. No more universal basic income or talk of that. It's going to trash our economy. We need to get back to work. Canada is a hardworking country. It was built on the back of blue collar workers. It was built on the back of hardworking immigrants. My grandparents came here and they helped build this country in the 1950s after World War II, and they were from Germany. But it was built on the backs of people who actually wanted to prosper and living off the government dole, whether you're a business or an employee or anybody else. It's just not working for Canadians anymore. So the People's Party of Canada would support a COVID recovery plan, which would also get rid of the CRB and never talk about universal basic income. We need to stop borrowing money. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Over to you, Shelley.
Thank you. So I just want to dispel a little myth here. CERB has been gone since 2020. So people are no longer on CERB. Yes, they are on CRB. CRB is very much like EI. EI, you have to prove that you're looking for work. Now, to look at the labor shortage, we're talking about much bigger things than people being on supports. I've talked to many organizations in several of the communities around, and we have discussed things such as a housing shortage. If people cannot find a house to live, they will not be able to work in that community. They're going to other communities. They're trying to find jobs elsewhere. We also have mental health issues. I've talked to some local business owners. There are workers that are not feeling safe going back to work yet. We've been told for 2 years that we need to protect ourselves, and people need these mental health supports, which the Liberals are going to be putting in more money, more funding towards mental health supports. We also need to work on childcare. If mothers cannot afford or have spaces of childcare available, then they are not going to be able to work. So we have a $10 a day childcare program, which the Conservatives will be cutting. And so we need to keep these systems in place in order to get people back into the workforce. So let's stop saying that it's CERB and it's the supports. These supports allow us to actually be involved in the economy, but we have a much greater picture to look at. And this is working our mental health, getting costs for childcare down, having affordable housing, and people need to just be supported and not just go back to work. That is not the reality. And this is what needs to be done.
Thank you, Shelley. Over to you, Andrea.
Thank you, Dan. This is a great question. The reason that I like this question so much is it speaks to a lot of what I do with ensuring that business owners have not only the management skills that they need, but also the support. So one of the things that exists across Canada is Community Futures, which is funded by our federal government and provides business services for clients, business owners across. What we know is that if somebody with a new business has help in terms of human resource management or administrative skills, if they have help getting their feet on the first rung of the ladder to economic success, they can do it. We do have challenges where we've got an aging population. Canada has always been a country of immigrants, and there are challenges currently with getting immigrants into the country. We have programs for farm workers where we have temporary foreign workers that come in, but honestly, it's not enough for some of our growing businesses. And the high-tech businesses that are developing throughout the corridor really need help from the federal government in bringing those skilled workers in from elsewhere. One of the challenges that we do have is that with the post-secondary education being the cost that it is, as Shelley said, affordable housing, the anxiety. There are a number of issues where the federal government can and should be helping. And the Green Party has a policy. The values are all about supporting communities as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Over to you, Ron.
Thanks, Dan. So we've got real solutions to create jobs and to help employers connect with workers across the riding and across the country. Too many families are worried about making ends meet, and they need action to create jobs and make life easier. Instead of supporting workers or creating jobs, Trudeau has been cutting supports for Canadians who are looking to get back to work while the pandemic is entering a fourth wave. In the meantime, he's also allowing wealthy CEOs to pay themselves big bonuses with the wage subsidies that were supposed to help ordinary workers. So we have a plan to create over 1 million additional good new jobs, building up our communities with investments in affordable, energy efficient housing, transportation, and energy infrastructure, making products that people want and need here, including critical vaccines, zero emission cars, and clean tech. These are industries that can be situated across the country. Creating good jobs for those who care for our loved ones, expanding childcare, which will help predominantly women get back into the workforce, and boosting wages and working conditions for long-term care workers. We're committed to building better workplaces for all workers with paid sick leave, pharmacare, and dental care. That takes the burden of that off of employer systems, a higher minimum wage, and expanded training opportunities, and supporting Canada's small businesses with programs like skills training and hiring bonuses, such as the signing bonus to pay the employer portion of EI and CPP. So as New Democrats, we know that when we deliver better public services that all Canadians can rely on, families and local businesses know this too.
Thank you, Ron. And over to you, Mel.
Thank you, Dan. This is a great question, something I've certainly heard so much about over the past, not just since COVID hit, but before this. Employers haven't been able to fill shifts at their business places. The biggest issue we saw coming into this election was jobs. And that's why one of the 5 pillars of our plan is jobs, to get Canada back to work again. We will gradually scale back the CRB program that has made it easy for people to stay at home. I've heard from so many businesses that aren't able to find employees, and yet we have a high unemployment rate, one of the highest in the G7. When other countries are recovering, Canada is lagging behind. Our Conservative caucus has also recognized that we need to create incentives for businesses to rehire. That's why we have introduced our Canada Jobs Surge Plan and our Rebuild Main Street Plan. Both of these will get 1 million Canadians back to work that have lost their jobs during the COVID situation. Rebuilding Main Street by encouraging businesses to rehire with a 25 to 50% tax credit for new net jobs that they create after this situation that we're in right now. We've also committed to doubling the apprenticeship program to train new workers in different jobs so that training can be there immediately. We'll work with the unions, we'll work with the businesses to create those apprenticeship positions so that we can move Canadians into better paying jobs to help secure their future and secure Canada's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. On to the next question. According to StatCan, small businesses make up 98% of employer businesses in Canada. Many cannot take on additional debt, and 1 in 6 expect to see a decrease in sales over the next 3 months. What does your party propose to support small business through the pandemic? And we will start with Shelley.
Thank you. So we actually reduced small business taxes from the Harper era 11% down to 9%. We know that small businesses need our support, and we are here and ready to do that. We also have plans on doing so much more for them. We do have the Canada Hiring Recovery Program that is being extended to March, and this is going to allow people to have either higher wages or hire more people to come work for them, and this is a benefit that they will get. We will give them adaptations to access this digital market. So we're going to provide them the opportunity to actually get markets outside of our local market. So this will let them go to international markets. I was actually talking to a store in Armstrong, and they are now able to sell to people in Quebec. So they are accessing much larger markets, which is going to provide more money into their business. We have cideries here, so we can actually buy local apples from our farmers. This is going to boost prices of apples in our community. Plus, it's going to allow us to have this BC products accessibility in small businesses. So we actually have a lot of supports for small businesses. We really care, and we know that they are the backbone of our communities, and we want to be able to protect them as well. So this is a plan that the Liberal Party has to work with small businesses in order to give them supports.
Thank you, Shelley. Over to you, Andrea.
One of the really great systems that happens in Canada, it doesn't happen in BC, but I really think that we should look at it, is sector-specific working groups. So businesses within a region that are in the same sector get together quarterly and discuss what issues and challenges and opportunities they're having. And if you look at the economic development numbers in Quebec as compared to anywhere else in Canada, they always lead for return on capital, for profitability, and it's because they collaborate with each other. So they don't just compete, they actually work to make their own businesses stronger and more vital. Kind of the way the winery industry has worked in the Okanagan, where so many of the wineries have marketed together and done business initiatives, business management. The grain industry does this a little bit in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, where small groups of grain growers will get together and go on a conference weekend and then talk to each other about what they're doing. We can make a change by changing the way that we think about things. Economic development and our small businesses are absolutely the key to a robust, strong economy. And the pandemic has been hard. Not everybody has been able to pivot, but the federal government has supplied support for that. And the Green Party would certainly continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Over to you, Ron.
So the NDP has committed to invest in regional economic development agencies to support rural small businesses, both as we emerge from the pandemic and going forward into the future. We had pressured the government to provide assistance during the pandemic, and we will keep doing so. Number of programs that we have are the hiring bonus, which I mentioned earlier, which covers the employer portion of EI and CPP payments, capping merchant fees for credit card transactions at 1%. We have programs for lowering telecom rates, which will be a huge benefit. We pay among the highest in the world, and improving high-speed internet outside of the big cities. So that, combined with all of our skills training programs, would round out our supports for small businesses there.
Thank you, Ron. Over to you, Mel.
Thank you, Dan. Small business, as you say, 90% of our employees or jobs are created through small business in Canada. And that's percentage is probably very close to that here in the North Okanagan Shuswap. Unlike their current prime minister, we won't consider small business owners to be tax cheats. We recognize that small business owners work incredibly hard. to not only provide for themselves, but to provide for their employees' families as well. That's one of the biggest stresses that I hear from business owners is they're worried more about their employees than they are about themselves. We will work to make sure that the Canada Revenue Agency is responsive to small business needs. That's one of the things that I heard highly of in my office over the past year and a half. The programs that were rolled out, not well thought out, businesses fell through the cracks. We had so many that we were trying to help to get through the initial phases because the programs rolled out by the Liberal government just didn't work. Now we have businesses that are afraid to take on higher debt because of the uncertainty that's still there through the COVID situation, not knowing whether they're going to be reopening again or not. Some of the positive things that we're going to work on is increasing broadband access right through rural Canada so that every Canadian has access to broadband internet by 2025. I've heard that through the small communities, the outlying communities in the rural parts of this riding of North Okanagan Shuswap. Internet access is so huge to those businesses. We also want to increase worldwide markets so that businesses have access to those markets. And we want to reinvigorate innovation here in Canada. All of this is in our plan. I hope you'll take a look. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. And over to you, Kyle.
The People's Party of Canada, we understand the economy needs to change for business to succeed and for Canadians to succeed. One of the things we're looking to do is get out of the Paris Accord, which would eliminate a lot of international agreements that do put a lot of red tape on businesses, added costs to this country. An example would be the carbon tax. And yes, BC is a provincial carbon tax, but if we notice in British Columbia, since the federal carbon tax came, the cost of living has gone up insurmountably. Now, if we look at the Liberals, what they've done here is they've attached a 15% corporate tax. That's what the world tax rate is going to be for corporate businesses. A lot of small businesses in the Okanagan are incorporated. The reason for incorporation is so you get tax advantages so that you can provide more for your employees in the way of getting benefits or higher wages, et cetera. We also would look at getting rid of the capital gains tax in Canada so that we're not going to be leaning so much on banks and other lenders from outside of Canada, but within the country itself. It also encourages research and development for riskier investments for a return. If you look at the income tax structure in Canada here, we need to lower income tax for all Canadians. That'll help small businesses retain employees. Like we said earlier, the cost of living is associated with retaining employees. When we have income taxes that are 20% instead of 15%, that extra 5% can be added to the mortgage, can be added to the kitchen table, and that will help businesses retain employment. And again, back to the deficit, borrowing money, printed money, it costs Canadians. It's dollar devaluation. It's splitting your current value. If you look at the house values on East Hill, they went from 300,000 to $1 million in the last 8 years. That's not because it increased in value. That's because of poor mismanagement between the Conservatives and the Liberals. They've divided so many of your dollars that our money is almost worthless in regards to world standards. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Kyle. And thank you to the attendees. It looks like we've got some great questions rolling in, and we'll do our best to get to those as time permits throughout the forum. Moving on to our next question, and we will start with Andrea. So what opportunities exist to strengthen the economy while addressing climate change?
There are so many by looking at the problems that we have a different way, bringing creative solutions to some of the issues that we have. And the way that that was done in the past, so in the actually the committee work across the aisle and bringing in people, members of industry and the population to look at what those issues were and actually bring solutions to them from a diversity of perspectives. The opportunity to do that has been somewhat quashed in recent years, where we've got partisan politics acting instead of putting the constituents first and foremost. There has been a lot of challenging situations where there's the one-upmanship and the people who think that they know best and don't take time to listen. So that's one thing that I bring to this is I'm very good at asking thought-provoking questions and listening and bringing in the perspective that the people involved in the situation know best what they need, and then helping them get those resources so that they can succeed and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Over to you, Ron.
Thank you. Well, as we know, Canada is the only G7 country that has increased its greenhouse gas emissions since the Paris Climate Accord. So it's pretty clear to everyone, and from the recent IPCC report, that the climate emergency can't be left for our kids to solve in a few years because it will simply be too late. As far as strengthening the economy, we would be closing tax loopholes that allow the ultra wealthy and corporations to squirrel away money and not pay their share of taxes on it. We would implement a wealth tax so that those same groups can pay their share of the transition into the green economy. And we would also be implementing a luxury good tax, and that will all enable us to act swiftly to reduce emissions. And another key point is to eliminate fossil fuel subsidies, both those that are direct and through tax credits. And then we can work together with our Indigenous communities to move forward and transition and make sure that we move into a green economy that leaves no workers behind. The NDP has always been a workers' party, and we will be there for workers.
Thank you, Ron. Over to you, Mel.
Thank you, Dan. How would we work to look at opportunities to strengthen our economy and address climate change? That is a work that we would take on closely with our local partners and our international trading partners. We would make sure that Canadian businesses and entrepreneurs could compete on a level playing field with those in other countries. One of the things that we've spoken about in our plan is to implement carbon border tariffs so that we aren't importing goods from other countries with lower environmental standards or human rights standards that compete with Canadian manufacturers. That's just not fair to anyone in Canada or anyone here in the North Okanagan Shuswap that's trying to compete on that world stage against those cheaper marketed goods because they're built under lower standards. We'd also work with our partners to make sure that our agriculture and forestry sectors are competitive. We've now been 6 years in BC and Canada without a softwood lumber agreement. The current government let it expire. Our previous Conservative government put one in place that stood for 10 years and helped our BC forestry sector. That forestry sector and our agriculture sector can be a huge part of carbon capture here in Canada. And we would work with those partners to build their economies, those and our local economies around that forestry and agriculture so that it also addressed the issues of climate change. There's so many pieces that could be put together, and it takes partnership of working with international governments and our local governments as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. Over to you, Kyle.
Thank you, Dan. In regards to addressing climate change, when we're talking about tariffs on products coming from other countries, we're talking about punishing Canadians. It's not a prudent method. Making cost of living higher for Canadians just so that we can punish other countries for not adhering to the standards that we want isn't going to make them adhere to those standards. If we want to be serious about it, I would suggest the Conservatives abolish or at least ban those products from coming into Canada and encourage investment in Canadian industry. And that's where our plan focuses, what our plan focuses on. It focuses on getting out of the Paris Accord. Like I said, getting rid of some of these agreements and these targets that are only hindering the development of business in Canada while encouraging the development business in China and in India. One of the things Canadians probably don't understand about the Paris Accord is that China and India are able to pollute at an increasing rate until 2030, while Canadians have to reduce their rate now. A few years ago, we had to start reducing our rates. That's not fair to us, and it's not going to encourage the development of greener products and greener business. It's only going to make it harder for Canadians to invest in their own economy and to build their own economy, because products that we're purchasing from China, as we see in the United States of America or even from Japan, they're not getting chips for their trucks right now. So there's thousands and thousands of trucks sitting at Ford not moving. Imagine relying on those countries which are carbon laden products into the future. We won't be able to say that we're reducing carbon by buying stuff from China or Japan if we can't produce it here. We need to focus on producing it here, so that we'll have products that produce underneath our environmental standards, our environmental regulations, and that should be the focus of the Canadian government.
Thank you, Kyle. And over to you, Shelley.
So our climate plan is a climate plan, but it's also a jobs plan. So first I'm going to touch on the climate side of things. We have the best plan. It is costed and it is the most effective when compared to other plans. Our plan gets an A-. The NDP's plan would hurt our workers and our industries, and it's ineffective and it's costly. The Conservative plan would take us backwards. The Green plan hasn't been costed yet. So we have an A- that's been given to us by Jacquard, who is an environmental economist. We also are here to build jobs. We know that our economy needs to build. So we're actually going to make Canada a hub for building batteries that are going to be used for our cars. It's going to be used for our solar panels. This is going to create jobs in our economy. We're also going to have our net zero accelerator program, which is going to train people and get them moving into this green economy. And we're going to turn people working in the fuel industry, the oil and gas industry, and turn this into jobs in a new green economy. We have turned the trajectory of our emissions to a downward spiral. So we are moving forwards to bringing our emissions down. We have our targets at 40 to 45% by 2030, and we have put into legislation that we will be at net zero by 2050. We are going to do this while adding jobs. We're going to do this by turning into a green economy, and we are going to be doing this with an effective, costed plan.
Thank you, Shelley. Moving on to our next question. What does meaningful reconciliation look like in regards to Indigenous communities accessing basic services such as water and economic development opportunities? We'll start with you, Ron.
Thanks, Dan. Well, for starters, in 2015, the Truth and Reconciliation Committee released its final report, including 94 calls to action for government. 6 years later, our government has yet to implement the vast majority of these recommendations. Our current government is also taking Indigenous children and residential school survivors to court in an attempt to overturn the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal decision that had already ruled in their favor. An NDP government will immediately implement all 94, or sorry, I should say immediately take steps to implement all 94 calls to action, because it will be a step program, from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We will establish a National Council for Reconciliation, and we will ensure that there is funding to recognize a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. We're committed to fully fund the exploration of grave sites at former residential institutions to bring all of these lost children home. And we will require churches and governments to hand over any and all records that could help in finding children who lay in unmarked graves. We want to proceed with giving Indigenous communities more control over child welfare systems and appoint a special prosecutor to pursue those who inflict harm on Indigenous children. We have commitments to protect Indigenous language with new legislation and stable funding, and work with provinces and schools to implement Indigenous history education programs in our schools. We will also fully implement Jordan's principles so that First Nations children are no longer denied the services and supports they need, And we will work across Canada to ensure access to clean drinking water and bring an end to these boil water advisories. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Over to you, Mel.
Thank you, Dan. What is meaningful reconciliation? As we move forward, that reconciliation needs to be developed in partnership with our Indigenous peoples across Canada, so that we all have a better understanding of their cultures, how we can work with them, maintain their cultures. I've worked with the 5 bands here in this riding of North Okanagan Shuswap, building relationships over the past 6 years, understanding how they're losing their languages, and if they don't do something within their own areas to maintain those languages, the few elders that remain that know the language are soon going to be gone. It's good to see that those actions are already being acted upon, and schools are now teaching those Indigenous languages to the young people so that they don't lose that culture. That true reconciliation will take all of Canadians working together to build that understanding. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission was established by the Conservative government in 2007. And the 94 recommendations came out in 2015. The Liberal government has cherry-picked which of those recommendations they're going to work with and which ones they haven't. They still haven't completed their commitment to providing or getting rid of all of the boil water advisories on Indigenous properties across the country. They're still 6 years into that and haven't achieved that yet. The true reconciliation will be transparent and worked on in conjunction with those First Nations, so that we, again, understand fully what it means to them and what it means to the rest of Canada. I'm committed to working with the Indigenous bands in my riding.
Thank you, Mel.
Again, thank you.
And over to Kyle.
So People's Party of Canada is looking, and listen, we understand the Truth and Reconciliation. It needs more attention. It hasn't gotten any attention. I'll bring to light Trudeau's comments a few years ago at one of the water protesters. Thanks for your donation, while the entire room of Liberal donators laughed. The Liberals haven't taken this serious for the last 6 years. The People's Party of Canada would definitely take this serious. It's not only in our environmental policy to make sure that there's clean access to water everywhere, but it's also in our policy book to work with Aboriginal peoples and First Nations in Canada to explore abolishing the Indian Act. The Indian Act is quite bureaucratic. It puts a lot of legal framework in place that negates equality for Aboriginals depending on where they are in Canada. We want to push Aboriginals and Canadians to the forefront and be equal together, no longer looking at the past and saying we have to reconcile this. We want to say that we can look at the past and say we had to, we did, and now we're all equal in this country. So the People's Party of Canada government will no longer ignore these 45 or 94 measures and add 95th one, which is looking to abolish the Indian Act. We also want to note there is a court case going on here where Canadian taxpayers are fighting other Canadians on something the Canadian government has pretty much admitted to doing. So that needs to stop as well. And as a People's Party of Government representative, I would make sure that that does, because it doesn't make sense to continue like the Liberals and the Conservatives have, talking about the issues that developed over the last 100 years between Canadian people and Aboriginals. And it's time to bring the Aboriginal community up to the same level as Canadians. We know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Over to you, Shelley.
So earlier this year, we passed an act to ensure that UNDRIP principles are enforced. I'd like to point out that Mel personally voted against implementing UNDRIP. We have lifted more long-term boil water advisories than existed at the time that we made the promise. There was 105 boil water advisories when we came into power. There is 109 lifted and 50 are remaining, with only 2 of those not currently being in progress. We are putting the hard work into acting on these calls to action. The Liberal government is committed to conserve more land and inland waters And these are going to be Indigenous-led efforts. So we're working with Indigenous people on actually managing the land. We are working with them and asking them, how do we approach these situations? We have mental health supports that are going to go directly to Indigenous communities, because we know that there has been a lot of trauma in these communities. And so we're going to provide them mental health services. We are going to be working with, actually with Cowessess Nation in Saskatchewan. They actually signed an agreement, and we're going to be working with many nations across Canada. We signed an agreement to actually develop their own childcare services that is culturally and Indigenous led. We have signed an agreement here with the Secwepemc people that they are able to take their own governments. We're going to develop a program so they can have their own governments. They used to have police force. They used to have their own government, and we are getting this back to them. So we have done lots of work on Indigenous rights, and we are going to be doing more, and we are going to be acting on those calls to action, and we're not going to stop now.
Thank you, Shelley. Over to you, Andrea.
Thank you, Dan. I do definitely support the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action. However, one of the things that really frustrates me with our current government system is the fact that the Canadian government continues to pay government lawyers to fight the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal order to pay compensation for the Indigenous victims of Canada's long-standing discriminatory child welfare policies. Worse than that, as disturbing as the finding of the unmarked burial site of 215 children at Tk'emlúps was, I am much more concerned about the ongoing apprehension of at-risk Indigenous children in this riding. Despite the fact that they account for less than 8% of Canadian children, they comprise 50% of children in care. One of the things that we could do much better is follow the lead of the province of Manitoba, which has found that supporting the family network is more effective and leads to better health and well-being outcomes compared to apprehension and removal. They started this in, I think, 2016. The number of children in care and the associated costs have declined each year since the Manitoba program began. I think that that kind of program should be replicated across the country. As everyone agrees, access to safe drinking water is a basic human necessity. Here in the valley that I live, the nitrate levels in the aquifer have failed to meet Canadian drinking water standard consistently since 2014. This affects both Splatsin and the non-Indigenous residents, especially harmful for pregnant women, young children, and those who are immune compromised. We have regulations. Thank you.
Just seeing that we have a half hour left, I'm going to limit questions to 1 minute response now, and I'm going to ask it to an individual. We'll go in order again. And if you would like to address that question as well, you can use your rebuttal and speak up to it, and I will make sure we get to you as well. Sound fair? Okay. So next to start first, we have Mel. Mel, you have 1 minute. The rising cost of housing, both to purchase and rent, is negatively impacting employers' ability to retain and attract staff. What measures are needed to ensure affordable supply of housing in the community, including for middle income earners?
Thank you, Dan. It's a great question, and certainly something I've heard about. I've heard of business owners actually purchasing homes so that they have a place for workers to live in when they come to work. Our housing plan will create 1 million new homes across Canada to address the shortage that's out there right now. But we also realize that we can't do this alone as the federal government. One of the first things I did as member of parliament was, when I was elected, was to hold a housing forum, housing affordability. In that, we realized that we need to work with our local partners, our regional or municipal governments to create more land available. We have to work with our provincial government on the Tenancy Act to make sure that it works for landlords and renters as well. We also have to bring down inflation as part of the overall recovery here and make homes affordable for.
Thank you, Mel.
Sorry, were you addressing me? Okay, perfect. Sorry, I just on behalf of my two teenagers, I just have to respond to this too, because I have some concerns for them when they move into adulthood, and I also have this dream that they'll one day move out of my house. Average rents rose in the province and every province in 2020. 1.6 million Canadians spend more than 30% of their income on housing, and Canada has the fastest growing house prices out of any G7 nation. For the past 10 years, Liberal and Conservative governments have failed to deal with the growing housing crisis. The NDP would be building 500,000 units of affordable housing over 10 years, with half of that completed in 5. We'll create incentives to drive the incentive of new affordable rental units, provide rental relief for struggling families, introduce a 20% foreign buyers tax, and tackle the money laundering that's inflating the housing market.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, I think I saw Shelley first, and then we'll go to Kyle.
So I can't talk about all of this in 1 minute. So I'm going to pick my favorites. So we're going to have a rent to own program. This is going to allow you to enter into an agreement to allow prospective buyers to make a commitment to buy their home in a certain number of years. This is going to help us get out of this endless rent cycle. It's going to allow us to save money and put that aside for a down payment on a home. Next, we're going to stop speculation on homes. We're going to stop, we have an anti-flipping tax. So this is going to stop people from jacking up house prices because they renovated them and they got it at a cheap price. These are the houses that we need people at a lower income bracket to get at, and we can't have people flying in and flipping them for a higher price. We're going to have a home buyer's bill of rights. It's going to ban blind bidding. We're going to have a legal right to home inspection. We're actually going to add 1.4 million homes instead of the 1 million that the Conservatives are saying, and we're going to, which is adding an additional 250,000 from what we had. Please check out our Home for Everyone plan. There's so much more in it.
Thank you. Over to you, Kyle.
Thank you, Dan. I just want everybody here, the North Okanagan Shuswap, to understand that the Conservative plan is like the Liberal plan. They want to spend more of your tax dollars that we don't have, that we've been borrowing at $400 million a day in a deficit for the last 18 months to buy you a home you can't afford. Money out of your pocket, back into your pocket, back out of your pocket. And like I said earlier, the price of housing has gone up. I mean, it's insane. It's $1 million for a house on East Hill. I could afford one on East Hill 8 years ago. We're looking somewhere in Trinity Valley now. It has nothing to do with anything other than government financial mismanagement and the dividing of our dollars. They continue to promise us borrowed money to alleviate this pain. Well, I want to let you know that the more they borrow, the more pain we're going to feel as Canadians, because the more they borrow, the more they devalue our dollars, which means we have to pay more and get less. That is not the best plan for Canadians. Check out peoplespartyofcanada.ca.
Thank you, Kyle. We'll go over to Andrea and then to Matt.
Thank you, Dan. One of the things that everybody is talking about so far is tweaking our existing system. We need to change our existing system because it is not working for people who want to get into the market. So some of the other opportunities that they're already in place are things like there are a number of communities where you buy into the community on the understanding that when you come time to sell, that you sell it for the same price that you bought it for, plus what inflation has done in the meantime. So rather than having 17% increase in your real estate, it actually stays stable over time. One of the other ideas, which is a European one, where they've had housing crisis for much longer, is co-housing communities, where people live together in their own domicile, but they share resources of the community itself. We need to think differently about housing.
Thank you, Andrea. Over to you, Mel.
Thank you, Dan. I just want to use this as one of my rebuttals. The Liberal Party is looking at taxing you on the sale of your home. People invest in their homes as their life savings. They're planning on putting a tax on your home if you sell it within 1 year. A lot of people have to move because of uncontrollable circumstances, armed forces members, RCMP officers, people that have had life-changing issues that now this Liberal government is spending so much money, they're having to find a new way of taxing you, and they're going to come after your home sale as part of that. So I'm glad I could use this rebuttal. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Mel. And it looks like Shelley, you would like to use your second rebuttal?
I would.
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to just point out that this tax, yes, it is to stop this anti-flipping tax. However, we have exemptions. If you have to leave for a job, if you get pregnant, if you get divorced, we have exemptions to this tax. So we are not here to tax the everyday homeowner. If we were, I'd be upset because I want to sell my house too. So no, this is not what our plan says. Could you please go read the plan properly so you know what our plan is actually saying? Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Okay, moving on to the next question. And the question is posed to Kyle's next in order. How would your party make accessible and affordable childcare available so parents can pursue employment, including those working shifts or at night?
We don't have a specific childcare policy. What we're focusing on is a robust economic policy, from finances to taxes, even down to home affordability, and making it easier for employers to offer childcare. I was talking with a childcare provider here about the $10 a day childcare subsidy, and she was concerned because it takes a lot of control out of her business and her ability to provide childcare for people. And she said that eventually the government of Canada will have too much control and it could become too costly for small childcare providers to be around. That to me looks like a negative effect on what they're trying to do for Canadians. I think that by focusing on a robust economy and making it easier for employers to provide benefits like childcare, we could see Canadian parents get back to work easier. But that would take, like Andrea said, reworking our entire system.
Thank you, Kyle. Moving on to our next question, it's over to Shelley. How would your party's agricultural platform address the competitive impact of doubly low agricultural support levels, federal and provincial, in BC?
Sorry, got to unmute. So the federal government is going to develop a sector-specific agricultural labor strategy. So this is where we're going to work together to address these labor shortages. So we're going to be able to have a more robust agricultural system. We're going to allow, we're going to have trade agreements that's going to get best prices that we can for our products. But we want to be able to open up these trades to be more than just a local market. As part of the federal government, we can help support programs such as the Buy BC program that the province has. We're going to encourage people to buy BC products. As a representative of robust agricultural community, we can seek to advocate for our riding, which produces almost everything that we would ever need here. So as I mentioned before, too, cideries are doing well, and we want to be able to support these businesses by having local produce and being able to support these in our agricultural sector.
Thank you, Shelley. Next question is for Andrea. How will your agricultural platform help protect farm production from extreme heat and drought?
The Green Party is a science-based party. My agricultural background, what we have seen on our own farm and the clients that I've worked with across Western Canada, is that we can actually mitigate drought. We can build our soil carbon, build healthy soils which draw down and sequester carbon while holding moisture. This has been really interesting over the past 5 years or so as I've gotten deep into soil microbiology, the changes that can be made. And this is sweeping North America with farmers on a number of different kinds of operations, horticultural and livestock, changing the way they practice using zero-till and no-till to actually ensure that the organic matter in their soil is doing the biological function that it needs to. Means that yields go up, prices go down. Gotta love it.
Thank you, Andrea. Next question, over to Ron. What steps are needed to streamline the immigration system so Canada can welcome much needed workers, entrepreneurs, as well as investors?
So we definitely need to have a compassionate and fair immigration system. Canada is a stronger country when we keep families together and help newcomers contribute to our communities. Justin Trudeau has been talking a good game on immigration, but his policies are keeping families apart and leaving newcomers and refugees behind. Newcomers to Canada are still more likely to work in lower paid jobs despite the skills and educations they bring to our shores, and they often struggle to find work in their fields due to excessive bureaucracy. The NDP is committed to focus on policies that work for everyone by keeping families together through faster family reunification that includes grandparents, helping immigrants contribute to the economy by improving foreign credential recognition, and doing our fair share to welcome refugees fleeing violence and persecution.
Thank you, Ron. Next, we will go back up to Mel.
Thank you, Dan. We can see
Sorry, next question though, unless you want to have a rebuttal on that.
Oh, I did have my hand up for a rebuttal.
Oh, sorry, I totally missed it.
Okay, no, just an opportunity for a rebuttal here. Canada's immigration system right now is in trouble. I hear constantly at my office people that are trying to reunite families that from other nations that are delayed now by years in a process that used to take months, and it's up to 3 years. And we've also seen the horrific failure of our immigration system with the Afghan interpreters and support workers that were left behind in Afghanistan by this current government, all because of bureaucratic nightmares that were created through the Liberal departments. Those people deserve better. Canada deserves better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. The next question does go to you if we're staying in order. So what is your position on mandatory vaccines and passports?
Thanks, Dan. Myself and my party believe that health choices are personal choices, and we will not be mandating anyone to have to take a vaccine. We fully support that vaccines are the safest and quickest way out of this pandemic situation. So I encourage everyone that is able to get the vaccine so that we can get our economy back to normal again. The issue around vaccine passports, the provinces are implementing those, and I encourage anyone with issues around that to contact their provincial MLA, the health minister, or the premier on those issues. We see a patchwork of things happening across the country. If we have to, in order to enable people to travel outside to other countries that are going to require these vaccine passports, we will work with the provinces, if needed, to create a standardized program. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Mel. Kyle, for your rebuttal. Sorry, Kyle, you're on mute. I'll start your time over.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to rebuttal. I seen Mr. O'Toole talking about installing a federal vaccine passport program, and it wasn't specific to travel on September 4th when he spoke. The People's Party of Canada since day one, has been insistent that our rights be respected in Canada. And we have a COVID policy that would assist Canadians with fighting provincial governments in removing these vaccine passport systems. If you were to vote for the People's Party of Canada and have people's representation in the House of Commons, you'll know that these provinces will be held to account and be forced to respect our charter rights and our Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. And staying in order, the next question is for you. How will your candidate party support women, especially in the area of sexual harassment?
It's a good question. Supporting women directly in the area of sexual harassment, there's a lot of programs around here. Personally, myself, when I've been traveling the last 3 years in the elections, I've been able to talk to people about not just addictions, but about abusive relationships and women and children on local level. I would make sure that I'm a strong advocate for this. I come from a community that's considered poor, and I understand domestic situations. I understand what it's like to live with a single mother, and I would make sure that as a member of parliament here, our party would be your voice. We don't have specific policies for everything like the other parties do, but what we do have is, as members of parliament, if we were the People's Party of Canada members of parliament, we would have no party whip and the ability to speak for your issues and the ability to take those issues to Ottawa constantly and work for you to keep you happy and make sure that these issues are taken care of. And like I said, addictions and family issues in this community are something I would be holding near and dear to my heart. Thank you.
Okay, time. Thank you, Kyle. Ron, it looks like you want to use your rebuttal for that.
Thanks. I couldn't remember if I had already used my second hand raising yet. I just wanted to address this issue and point out that delivering a national action plan to end gender-based violence backed by stable funding to ensure that shelter services and other programs are available in all regions of the country, especially in areas that have traditionally been underserved. And we would also be updating the labor code to include 10 days of paid leave for anyone who's dealing with family and domestic violence.
Thank you, Ron. And Andrea, for your last rebuttal.
I just want to let everybody know that there is an organization that is dedicated to reducing sexual violence, and in fact, all violence against women. And it's called the Moose Hide Campaign. And it's an Indigenous-led coalition across, it started in BC, but it's across Canada, of using education and training at all levels, starting in school, going into communities, and really helping community members understand how to use better tools, better problem-solving tools to reduce violence against.
Andrea still has time, so I want to give her an opportunity if she does.
No, it was just, I just
okay.
wanted everybody to know that education is always the key to something like this, but it takes a long time and a lot of resources.
Thank you, Andrea. Looking at the time, I will ask one more question to all party members, and we will go in order. Again, 1 minute to answer, and then we'll move into your closing statements. So the question for everybody is, what is one thing you agree with an opposing party about? I want a government that will work towards solutions. That was a question from an audience member. So we will start with Shelley.
Well, I believe that the Green Party has a fantastically ambitious climate plan, and this is a great plan. Unfortunately, it isn't costed, so we don't know what the cost is to be for our economy. But if I had to choose one thing from another plan, it would be their climate action plan.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. Over to you, Andrea.
Well, I'm going to go back to Shelley because I honestly think that the Liberal government has done a good job on affecting change in our local communities, both in Salmon Arm and in Vernon, with affordable housing, with supporting the building of bachelor suites in supportive housing where there are meals and counseling available. It has taken a lot of our homeless people and provided them, if they aren't in there, with hotels during the COVID pandemic. And it has been good for our communities. The ones, both Vernon and Salmon Arm, have been struggling with this for some time. And the Liberals have actually put their money where their mouth is. So thank you.
Sorry, Dan, is that me again? Okay, your sound just cut out for me. So I can honestly say the issue of affordability has come up in every platform, and while each party may have different plans of how they're going to deal with it, it's definitely refreshing to see that we all agree that as a percentage of income, housing costs way too much, groceries cost way too much, the cost of childcare is way too much. It's all just nickel and diming our paychecks away till there's nothing left. And you know, how are we supposed to get ahead? So it's good to see that every party has plans to deal with that, even if they're not necessarily as great as the NDP plans. Thanks.
Thank you, Ron. Over to you, Mel.
Thank you, Dan. I would have to, I think, agree with everyone out there that affordability for every citizen is a big concern for everyone. But the difference comes in action rather than words. The actions have to be more than virtue signaling. Phrases like helping the middle class and those hoping to join it. There has to be real action on the ground to fight inflation, to fight the raising cost of living and home prices. We all, I think, need to work together as parties, but also with our provincial counterparts, our regional and municipal counterparts, to work together to find solutions to the affordability problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. And over to you, Kyle.
You know, this federal election and the last federal election, the Green Party used the phrase, the system has to change, whether that's a policy or the general notion. That's what I can agree with, and that's about as far as it can go. I believe the People's Party of Canada has that policy platform. If you go to the peoplespartyofcanada.ca and you read every single one of our policies, there's about 20 of them that we want to initiate. You'll see that we're pushing to get the 1% out of subsidies from the 99%. You'll see that we're pushing to get less taxes out of your pocket. We want to keep more money in your pocket. We don't want to pander to you anymore. Pander, pander, pander. They always want to buy you something with your money and then say that it's making your life easy. That's what the other four parties do. That's what this party won't do. We're going to treat this government, this country, and your finances and your taxes the same way you treat your pocketbook, with respect. And once we do that, the cost of living will go down, the GDP will increase, prosperity should reign. But we got to stop pandering and using tax dollars to go ahead. Taxing a nation into prosperity is like standing a bucket and picking it up.
And now we'll move into closing statements, and we'll go in reverse order from when we started. You'll each have 2 minutes. And so that means we will start with you, Ron.
All right, well, first of all, I'd like to thank Dan and Richard and the Greater Vernon Chamber of Commerce for hosting this meeting and giving each of the candidates an opportunity to address your members and the community. Everywhere I go, I hear from people in the North Okanagan Shuswap that are telling me they're tired of the same old thing. They're tired of feeling like nobody's listening, and I understand firsthand the issues these people are facing, and I know they deserve better from their government. Our government should be accountable to everyone, not just answering to the super rich, and certainly not to corporate interests. Every year that goes by without taking action on the issues that matter to us all is creating a deficit. I think we all understand how deficits are created. If you don't pay your heat bill, then you pay double plus penalties the next month. And if you don't pay next month, the problem just gets worse until it feels insurmountable. We can't continue to build this deficit of action on these important issues because the solutions might be difficult. The NDP has always been a workers' party, and we are ready to get the work done and ensure that nobody, no families like yours or mine, gets left behind as we navigate through the pandemic recovery and move forward into a better future that we can build together. My name is Ron Johnston, and I will be your voice fighting for change. I'm ready for better. Are you? Vote NDP.
Thank you, Ron. And Andrea.
Thank you, Dan and Richard and the BC Fruit Growers and the Vernon Chamber of Commerce for allowing me to be here and have my say. Unfortunately, affordability is kind of on the chopping block because if we don't address climate change in a proactive way, we've had 30 years of really going backwards. We went from climate leaders internationally under the Brian Mulroney Progressive Conservative government to successive Liberal and Conservative governments going backwards, so that we now are perpetual winners of the fossil awards at the international climate summits. This cannot go on. It is going to get less affordable as this year with the heat dome and the drought, our yields are down on average something like 4%. Food is going to get more expensive. That is not addressing affordability. We need to address climate change and bring in some of the very good promises that have been made and then not acted on. And it is absolutely the most important thing of our time. Vote green, vote now, vote September 20th. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. And Shelley.
Again, thank you to the Chamber and the BC Fruit Growers Association for hosting us this evening, and for everyone who's here and was asking questions. The Liberal Party has put in real action, but we have been working hard at doing things instead of wasting time talking about what we've done. $100 billion spent towards climate action is not doing nothing. Helping individuals and businesses through COVID is not doing nothing. We have shown over these last couple of years that we can act. We are at a critical moment in our fight with COVID, our growth as a country, and a climate crisis that is existential for the world. We have worked hard to get a great many of us vaccinated, well on the road to opening up again. It is essential that we finish the fight and not go backwards again. As we build back better, we absolutely must address the climate crisis with a bold, achievable, and affordable plan like ours, which has been endorsed by leading economists and climate scientists like Dr. Andrew Weaver. When you go to the polls in the coming days, I'd like you to consider both the critical nature of where we are in fighting COVID, and we don't need more of the same representing the party to our region. We deserve a representative that's engaged, energetic, and hardworking. Vote Shelley Desautels on September 20th. Thank you very much and have a fantastic evening.
Thank you, Shelley. Over to you, Kyle.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight and listening to what we have to offer to Canadians. I encourage everybody here tonight to go home and purchase The Great Reset and read the book before you vote for either Trudeau or for any of the other Build Back Better parties. On September 24th, 2020, Trudeau was screaming into his computer about the opportunity they've been waiting for through this pandemic to reset this nation. It's not going to be good for Canadians. I encourage you to look at the People's Party of Canada platform over the next couple of days before you do vote and see if there's anything that aligns with you. And remember, this riding here, the only thing the Conservatives are running on is the vote split. Don't split the vote or Liberals getting in. The best thing I can tell you is there is no vote split here in the North Okanagan Shuswap. There may be a few other ridings across Canada like that. This is not one of them. So don't be fooled again by that vote split narrative. Vote for what you believe in this time. Vote for the People's Party of Canada. Having even just a few People's Party of Canada members of Parliament will change the narrative in the House of Commons, and we will start working for Canadians again. Stop with these $100 billion programs that are making the cost of living outrageous for all of us. Stop pandering. Stop taking money out of your pocket and putting it in the other person's pocket. Open up the free market. Get the economy back. And you know what? Maybe focus on local development, local R&D, and local production. Stop relying on China and India and other countries, because we do agree on one thing. There needs to be clean environments, but the climate crisis narrative needs to end. It costs Canadians too much. So thank you very much. Vote for the People's Party of Canada this September 20th.
Thank you, Kyle. And over to you, Mel.
Thank you, Dan. And thank you to the Chamber and the BC Fruit Growers for hosting tonight. And especially thank you to all the viewers out there tonight. being engaged, listening to what we have to say as candidates. And I also want to thank the other candidates tonight for putting their names forward. It is a challenging endeavor to put your name out there in the public like this. And I want to thank all the other candidates for doing such a great job. One of the first things we get asked as a candidate is, why are you running to be my member of parliament? For me, it's about quality of life, improving and protecting it, and making sure that it's available for generations to come. Quality of life is more than just the physical things and the beauty around us. It's about affordability, good jobs, health, whether it's mental or physical health. It's about safety in our communities for our children to grow up and for our seniors to retire in. Healthcare, affordability, a safe home, all of these things are what matter to me and why I'm running. Our plan is about accountability and transparency. Being accountable to you, government working for you, not the other way around. I hope everyone will take the time to read more about our plan at conservative.ca/plan. We are proud of it, and I think you will like what's in it as well, because there is something in it for everyone. Those are my goals as I continue as your Conservative candidate and would like to continue as your member of parliament. I ask for your vote. Please vote Mel Arnold. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. And again, as part of my closing statement, I want to thank all the candidates as well. Really appreciate you attending the forum tonight and participating, sharing your thoughtful answers with us, and mostly for wanting to represent the North Okanagan Shuswap riding. So we appreciate it greatly. I want to thank all the attendees who joined us tonight to share in the forum and share your thoughtful questions with us. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them as time permitted, but make sure you do go use your voice September 20th at the polls. I want to thank the BC Fruit Growers Association for sponsoring us tonight. Much appreciated. And with that, I say goodnight to everybody, and it's been a pleasure.
Good night. Thank you, Dan.